Okay, both teams are on the field. Commentators, take it away.
Alright, this is Kill 2 here with Angel Hun. We have another match for you from Alliance Tournament 8. This is going to be Atlas Alliance versus Intrepid Crossing, one of the more anticipated matches this morning. And Atlas has brought a Loki, a Hurricane, 2 Brutixes, 2 Rooks, 1 Guardian, 2 Ishkur, and 1 Tyrannus.
And from Intrepid Crossing, we have a Drake, Kitsune, Tengu, Drake, Daredevil, Tengu, Vulture, and Tengu. So we have a trio of Tengus again, just like AAA fielded.
Yeah, this looks super similar to their setup. They've got a little tackle, they've got Drakes and Tengus, and yeah, just a little bit of support. So here we go, match underway. This Atlas team a little more mixed. They've got a little bit of E-War, which has already taken some damage. That first Rook at about half shield. We'll see if that's able to kind of keep them alive.
And for those of you unfamiliar with server politics, IRC versus Atlas is sort of an old war that brewed, and Atlas pretty much crushed IRC on Tranquility. So let's see if they get their rage out again. Let's see if IRC gets back at them.
So far, kind of a stalemate. Looks like that Guardian able to keep the Rook working. Usually on TQ, you know, you see Rooks and they would not have a tank at all, really, I guess. But these ones definitely going to be running armor tanks with that Guardian there to support them. So a little bit of damage now being taken by the Intrepid Crossed team. That Kitsune and that Daredevil taking some damage.
The IRC Kitsune is now down. It looks like, as far as E-War goes, that it looks like Atlas is now able to get a lot more damage on the opposing team.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird setup. The Brutixes are a weird choice. They are sitting right on top of that Drake now. I suppose they shouldn't really have a lot of trouble catching up, but we could end up seeing the same sort of thing we saw in the AAA match where, you know, the Tengus have a pretty easy time kiting this should be slower Brutix Hurricane DPS, even though it looks like the Loki or the Brutixes have that Drake webbed pretty well. So depending on the tackle, it shouldn't be a problem. And for now, the tank's holding so well, it doesn't make a difference, I guess.
Looks like damage doesn't seem to be going out from either team. The Guardian seems to be keeping up the entire IRC team. The entire Atlas team, sorry, my overview is screwed up. The entire Atlas team up, while the IRC team seems to not be taking much damage at all. Looks like we just
lost an Intrepid Drake. Yep, first one of those down, and I don't know what you guys' camera is catching, but we're definitely seeing a couple of these Tengus unable to fire. One thing that's nice about bringing ships like the Brutixes and the Hurricanes is where they would need a lot of I don't know, tackle mods and stuff on TQ. You can make room for some E-War, so those can be dampening as well as the Rooks doing their jamming. At this point, there's so few ships, those Rooks are going to be super effective on their own. And it looks like now Atlas has switched to the second IRC Drake, which is starting to do some shield damage.
And with that Vulture on the field, you can expect these Atlas buffer tank shield ships, the Tengus and the Drake, to be pretty robust, but it doesn't look like they're able to keep up with the damage output slowly trickling in from the Atlas team.
So what do you think about, I mean, if these are buffer fit, how do you like that as opposed to, you know, running a Scimitar and trying to kind of have a more active E-War based tank rather than these passive setups that it looks like they're running here?
I mean, it's effective on its own, and it's pretty easy. It's pretty cheap to fit in general. There are a lot of implants. That do seem to affect it much better, and also you're not wasting a spot on a logistics ship, which really is really quite expensive as far as setups go.
Yeah, but as we're seeing here, you know, if you can't, I feel like mids are so precious in the tournament. You really need to be able to get a lot of E-War going on there, and these Tengus, I don't know if they had some, but so much of their ship devoted to tank that really Atlas not having any trouble doing everything they wanted to do in this match. So even though it's taking a while because these ships are pretty well tanked, there's not too much that can change because you know, there's not these Intrepid crossing ships just don't do a lot. They just kind of sit there and shoot missiles, which is always what we wind up complaining about with the kind of worse tournament setups.
Well, I mean, there's a reason why we complain about them, because on a team that uses just a smidge of brain, they are outclassed. With the rooks on the field, Atlas has complete control. They can do whatever they want right now with the IRC team.
Yeah, they really are in a dominant position, and they would be anyway at this point, going 10 against 4. But hopefully all the Tengus don't tank quite as well as this one, because there's really nothing that can change at this point. I mean, these Tengus are all going to be basically the same. Vulture's basically going to be the same story. He's there to make those tanks a little bigger, but there's really, I mean, Atlas can, do whatever they want. So they're just sitting on top of this Tengu. Finally, he goes down. Now let's switch to the next one, and so on and so on.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to save that Vulture for last, as he's not really much of a threat for their team, if any of them can even lock. I'm zoomed in on the Loki right now. It doesn't look like he's using any type of gang mods, so I'm not exactly sure how the Atlas team is going to be tanked. I was expecting possibly a Sig Radius tank, but that doesn't seem to be the case.
No, just armor, I think. This is real interesting because you've got a team like Atlas here, which to me this doesn't look like a particularly dominant setup. They're winning, obviously, and that says something. But you take this team and you have them completely kill all of IRC. They move on to the next round with full points. They're actually going to be the type of team that has to face a really difficult team, where we saw Hydra now get themselves placed behind someone like this. What do you think about that? The way that Atlas here is going to be actually placing above Hydra.
Well, I mean, this setup it could actually counter Hydra's team. They do seem to have the maneuverability to get out of range of the Hydra setup that was just fielded, and those rooks could actually do quite a good job of locking out the damage of the Sleipnir and Hurricanes. This would have been actually an interesting match if Hydra hadn't sandbagged it. But it should be interesting to see how Atlas does against a higher ranked team than IRC, because right now they're just completely overmatched. They're overmatching them, just wiping the field.
Yeah, so one more Tengu down. It looks like they may move to the Vulture next, just out of convenience. The second Tengu, or third Tengu, I guess, is super far away from everyone else, so they're going to go to that Vulture and work on him. This Tengu is able to fire, so maybe just jamming on that Atlas team instead of the possibility of damps, like I said, since he is able to shoot. Vulture starting to take damage, taking it very slowly, obviously. So, yeah, just huge buffers here. I just don't know. I don't think this can win tournaments. We have seen buffer setups like this squeak people through qualifiers. That's definitely been the case. Last year there was several kind of basic shield setups that got people through qualifiers, but it's really rare to see them do very well after final stages, after the third week of the tournament starts. And so I don't know if it's a good place to start. It's like kind of setting yourself up for being in bad shape later.
Well, it does seem to be pretty interesting. I mean, they must have expected to wipe the field with their missile setup, but it just wasn't to be. Not even close against this Atlas setup. So far, we haven't seen any flagships or any of the nano setups, but we are seeing a lot of use of the scramblers to actually deactivate the opposing team's micro warp drives, especially from Atlas right now against IRC with that Tyrannus. We're definitely seeing a lot more E-War with the new triple rule, allowing 3 ships of a single type instead of the older 2 ships of one type.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it looks like the triple thing is going to make a big difference for some teams, and for others, not such a big deal. We've seen a lot of kind of widespread. We saw 2 curses used. We saw only 2 rooks, 2 brutixes on this team. It looks like it's going to make a big difference for some teams. People bring in 3 Tengus, people bring in 3 rooks in some cases. But it is interesting how it tweaks the balance just a little bit, enough to keep things different, which is good.
And it looks like that Vulture is breaking now. commentation from Atlas saying that they're absolutely thrilled with the IRC missiles chucking team.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of the thing, is that's exactly what a lot of people... I don't know. I guess for this setup at least, it's a great thing to run into. But think about the setups we've seen so far and how they would have done against it. You know, that Macarial setup with all the jamming probably would have done really well against it. The Lawn team, whatever the start of their name was. And the Hydra team, the Bombers, they probably would have done really well too. I just don't know what this buffer setup really is strong against.
It seems to have been really strong against teams that are going for the high damage, high alpha without a whole lot of E-War on their side. But, I mean, even with that initial Blackbird, there was just not enough way to just control the opposing team. IRC just had no way to control Atlas. Not at all.
I wonder if... I feel like we should maybe talk about FOF missiles. I feel like a lot of time these teams that go for passive setups with missiles as their main source of DPS are kind of hoping they can get around the E-War using FOFs, which never seems to work out too well. The FOFs always target the drones, and the damage is always too spread out, and nothing ever really happens. I don't know if this team was trying to do that. This Tengu is running ECCM, so they were at least hoping to counter some E-War. You know, not just go full tank in the mids, but whatever they did, it didn't work. We're about to lose that last Tengu, and that will be a flawless victory for Atlas here.
Yeah, and an excellent job by the Atlas team, once again crushing IRC just like they did when they invaded the north. Good job, guys.
It's always nice to have that kind of political edge to these matches. I'm sure Atlas is absolutely loving this, and Intrepid Crossing is absolutely hating it, which is pretty awesome. So finally this Tengu going into armor, and armor thankfully will not last as long as shields. And after armor comes structure, and then we can go back to Soundwave, sending Atlas to round 2 with a really strong showing here, so good job them.
Yeah, there we go. Concluding the Atlas Intrepid Crossing, Atlas taking the victory. We'll be back shortly with Bane versus Unaffiliated.